Judge Tatel, we're giving you your flowers now because you deserve them, but you've deserved them all throughout, for every step of your career.
Judge Tatel had an important impact on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. His gravitas, his intelligence, his writing.
He was a delight to argue in front of. He was incredibly prepared, very articulate, very courteous, and a bit mischievous.
There is nothing scarier than arguing in front of Judge Tatel because he will know your case and your record better than you do.
Every time I argued in the DC Circuit and was assigned to a panel that David Tatel was on, it was just drew a big smile on my face.
I mean, we had a lot of cases where you had to interpret precisely the language of, let's say, a statute. And so, you know, I might be shuffling my papers trying to find the language during oral argument to ask a lawyer a question about that language. And Judge Tatel would, you know, just off the top of his head, be able to recite that language.
He forced people to confront the most difficult aspects of their argument, whether it was an argument that he ultimately favored or didn't favor, but in a way that essentially brought out the best in people.
Even in the cases that were excruciatingly boring, incredibly complicated, the judge was finding something unusual and fascinating and interesting to home in on and think about and get his mind around. And I loved seeing that again and again.
Judge Tatel's example of moral clarity just makes me think about the giants of the civil rights movement.
You know, over 700 opinions over the course of 30 years really have helped sustain our constitutional democracy.
And then you look at the important work that he did at the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare as the head of their Office of Civil Rights at an important time when school districts across the nation are trying to implement the desegregation mandate of Brown versus Board of Education.
When he was in private practice at both Sidley and Hogan, an enormous part of his practice was doing civil rights work.
I think what stands out to me personally about Judge Tatel's story is this focus on doing the right thing and his focus on using the law to really address the issues that were faced by the communities that he was working in without a regard for whether it was necessarily the most politically popular or socially acceptable thing to do. I think there's a zealousy of advocacy that mirrors what we try to do at Legal Aid.
So there are 149 former law clerks and readers who had this extraordinary privilege of beginning their careers with the judge. It's a tight-knit group, one, because that's the culture the judge creates. He is so sincerely dedicated to each of his clerks. I mean, really is a family.
You have given so many of us, all of us clerks, all of the Tatel tots, such a great start to our careers.
We would all have lunch together and talk about everything. That's where the curiousness and the inquisitiveness really came through. We'd talk about cases, we'd share ideas about particular arguments, but we'd also talk about the news, politics, culture, everything.
His law clerks took on a lot of the responsibility for making sure that he was guiding him to the metro and to other places, and it meant you got all of this time to just chat with the judge.
As a clerk family, I think we are incredibly dedicated to Judge Tatel because I go back to how genuine he is. And during that year, it really becomes clear that he cares about you as not just a lawyer, but as a person and your family.
But I remember him calling me to offer me the clerkship. And this was just, even today, 20 years later, just the most amazing thing that happened to me. And I yelled, I was like, I'm so excited. And the judge, without missing a beat, yelled back, I'm so excited too. And it was just, for him to meet me where I was at was just the beginning of such an important relationship to me. And, I was yelling like I had won the lottery, and I really did.